Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is my November bullet journal setup. I wanted to start this video off a little bit differently because I've gotten quite a few comments in some of my videos about not having access to some of the stores that I shop in. Maybe you're international, so you don't have access to like a Michael's or Joann's. So I decided to kind of take that as a challenge and see what I could find in the online world. What I found is some really beautiful printable papers. And I'll leave a link to all of these gorgeous, like look at, oh my goodness gracious, look at those butterflies. I will leave a link in the description box to the shop that I bought these from. I found these on Etsy and they're absolutely stunning. There are actually, I don't have all the papers here. So here are some of the other papers. This one is another gorgeous butterfly, and I just printed these out on my printer at home. I will say I don't have the world's best printer, so this was not the funnest thing to me, struggling with my printer and having to print all these out. However, it really opened up a whole new world of crafting for me, finding all these new papers that I knew you could find downloadable papers online, but I guess I never really thought about buying an entire collection that went together similar to all of the paper packs that I have all the time. So I will leave the link to the shop where you can actually purchase these. They were very inexpensive and you can print these over and over and over again. So you can have as many pages of these as you guys want. I also cut out some of the butterflies. You guys know I like to fussy cut all these little things out. So I cut out some of the butterflies from one of the papers and I'm gonna maybe use them as decoration on some of the pages that I don't want to use like a full sheet of paper. So that's an idea. And then I also, to use as sort of like washi strips, like washi tape, I cut out strips of some of the papers so that I can just use basically just this paper pack, like this downloadable printable paper pack. And I love this idea. I had so much fun coming up with some of these ideas. I did struggle a bit, like I said, with my printer. It's not the best, so it was very frustrating, which is why this video is coming out a little bit late. I got a little bit frustrated with my printer, but once I got it working, I had so much fun printing and cutting and designing. So I highly recommend this shop as well. It was very simple to purchase and download. So, all right, I am just going to pass you guys over to VoiceOver Tracy and I'm going to get started creating.
Okay, so somehow in between filming this video yesterday and recording this voiceover today, I have gotten a cold. So please excuse the sound of my voice. You guys know if you've been here for a while, when I get sick, the first thing to go is my voice. But we're just going to push through it and keep going. So I wanted to kind of explain to you guys how this whole digital paper pack worked. I purchased it from Julia Dreams Co. And like I said, I'll leave a link in the description box down below. She has some amazing artwork and some clip art stuff. She has some really cool Christmas papers that I may end up using for my Christmas planner, which will hopefully come up in the next couple of weeks. But I wanted to start out with saying that if you purchase this paper pack from Etsy, the paper pattern is actually slightly larger than what you see that I've printed out. So when I downloaded this, I noticed that the patterns were larger than what I wanted to put in my journal because they're 4 12 by 12 papers. So they're actually quite a bit larger. So what I did was I downloaded it to my computer, put the images into my Pages program on my Apple computer, which would be like a Word program if you have a Windows-based computer. So I put the pattern into Pages and I sized it smaller. And then since it's a seamless pattern, which is key to this whole thing, the pattern is seamless, so you can make a repeat pattern. Hopefully all of this makes sense. If I could have learned how to screenshot or screen record my process doing this, I totally would have, but I have no idea how to do that. But I basically just shrunk the pattern down and then added multiples of it to create a full pattern that is smaller. So I did that for all of the patterns and it turned out really, really beautiful. I love the way that these papers look. They're so eternally fall, like they just scream fall to me. Even though they have butterflies and flowers, I don't know if it's the colors or what, but I love the way that this turned out. So for my cover page here, I did basically the same thing that I do most months, where I did a title page on the right-hand side and a currently loving list on the left-hand side. And that's just where I'll put in some of the things that I am loving this month, like the TV shows or books or music or whatever sort of media that I'm into at the moment. I will write down the titles of the songs or whatever on those little labels that I actually got from Viola Maria Arts. I believe that's the name of the shop. I'll leave that linked down below as well. It's another shop I found on Etsy. Those are not digital though. Those are actual stickers that I purchased and she sent to me. But for my titles, I decided to go with something that I've never done before, and I love the way that it turned out. I have some drop cloths that I've used for several years just for random crafty type things. I don't really use them for paint like they're intended for, but I just bought them years and years ago from Lowe's or Home Depot. I can't remember, but they're humongous, like 9 feet by 12 feet drop cloths. And I've just over the years used them for random craft projects. And I had some smaller scraps laying around, so I decided to see what it would look like to stamp on these little strips of drop cloth, and it turned out really cool. This is something I'm definitely going to be doing again, especially in this season, because for some reason it just kind of gives an added warmth to everything. I don't know. I love the way that it looks, and I'm going to go in and stamp a little dash all along the top there and the bottom of each one of those canvas titles and make it look like it's sort of stitched on. I'm not a sewer. I do not like to sew. Fabric and I are usually not very good friends. So I have a sewing machine, but I don't have one set up and I don't like to use it. Because like I said, Fabric and I are not friends. But I have a lot of fabric for crafty type things, like a lot of ribbon and stuff like that. So I may attempt to do this on a sewing machine one day. I've seen Allie Edwards use her sewing machine a lot in her like December daily setups and stuff like that. But anyways, I have made a tag out of those papers. I tried to use as much of the papers as I could and stick to only using those papers. And for the most part, I did. I did end up using some of the ribbon that came in, I believe it was the latest quarterly box from Archer and Olive. She had 3 spools of like this sheer gorgeous ribbon. And it was one of my favorite boxes. This box that came, I believe it was the last box she sent out. The journal that came in it is stunning. And I decided to use the ribbon that came in that subscription box to add to the top of this tag that I just cut out of the paper. I used my tiny attacher tool, which is like a teeny tiny little stapler, to attach the ribbon just so that I didn't have to tie a knot, because it already adds quite a bit of bulk to the journal. So I didn't want to tie a knot. So it just makes it to where it's not so bulky adding that ribbon if you just attach it with a staple. So like I said in the beginning, I cut out a bunch of those butterflies from the paper pack. So if you know how digital papers work, there are some times where you can edit them and sometimes you can't. And Julia has made it to where you can actually change the color of the background in a lot of these papers, which I did not do. I left everything exactly the way that it was, but it's a great way to just purchase one thing and use over and over and over again by just changing the color palette. Like I said, whole new world of creativity going on here. But so I cut out some of the butterflies and I'm just using them as sort of ephemera all over the page. And I use them on almost every page, I think. I had a difficult time with that tag. It felt sort of blank to me, but it also felt like it just kind of blended in. This color palette is each color is different, but it's also very similar, so there wasn't much contrast to it. So I had a hard time making that tag sort of look like it popped out of the page. So I decided to take my 942 Tombow marker, which is one of my favorites. I use it almost every month, and just sort of outline the edge just to make it pop a little bit. And I think it did exactly what I intended it to do. I also used the watercolor Post-its, which came from Stationery Pal, and I use, again, almost every month. I love them. They're so versatile. I used those to stamp the word hello and make a little flag, just, again, to add something to that tag. It felt like it was missing something, and I love the way that this cover page turned out. I cannot say enough how much I love the idea of these digital papers. They're just perfect. So now we're moving on to my calendar spread, and as usual, I created waterfall tabs. I can't seem to get away from them. I love the way that they look. This time, instead of using washi though, I decided to rip out the design from each one of these papers, and I just ripped along the edge and stuck it down and cut out the pages. I love the way that it looks. It's something a little bit different instead of the washi, and I think it's so pretty. This butterfly paper is one of my favorites from this pack. Obviously, you guys know I love butterflies. It has this sort of fall element to it. I don't know. I love the way that this turned out. So as you guys can see, I had a lot of mistakes in this setup. I don't know what was happening in my brain. The beginnings of the cold maybe was taking over. And I only did 6 days worth of calendar on this. I will notice it when I start to stamp out the days of the week. I will notice that I only have 6 days instead of 7, and I will fix it. It was a very easy fix, thankfully, because I just added too much paper to the left-hand side, and I cut off my little pencil marks from where the calendar actually needs to be drawn. And so I just misdrew actually, and you'll see me fix that in a minute. But I am using some of the strips from that paper pack as sort of washi tape, and again using the canvas material and the ribbon to create my November title. Along the bottom, I am creating just a tiny little notes section. I don't usually use this section very much. Really, the only thing that I put there is something that may happen in the very beginning of the following month that I don't want to forget. Like if it's in those last 3 days of that week, like for example, this would be December 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. I would put it in that spot if something is going on, because I may not have my December setup finished, or I just don't want to forget. So you can see here, this is when I noticed the mistake that I made, and I just continued on with those boxes in the beginning, and I covered up what I had done originally with some scrap paper that I pulled from the waterfall tabs. A very easy fix. You can't even really tell, and it looks perfectly fine to me. So thankfully I didn't mess up too much. Usually when I mess up, I can figure out a way to fix it. There hasn't been anything where it's been such an epic mess up that I've had to like glue pages together. Actually, I think there was one in my reading journal. I think I've only done it once where I glued pages together because I was like, nope, this just looks awful. I can't. I can't. So now we're moving on to my trackers spread, and this is where I'll put my habit trackers and my mood tracker. I really like the way that this turned out. It's a little bit odd because I actually used some pumpkin stamps for my mood tracker, and there are no pumpkins in this entire setup. Actually, in any of my November setups, there are no pumpkins, which is strange because usually I try to incorporate pumpkins somewhere in my fall setups, whether it's in October or November. I try to incorporate pumpkins because it's just like that's what you think of when you think of fall. You think of pumpkins. But there are no pumpkins in this entire setup. But I had to incorporate pumpkins somewhere because I had the stamp set that I used last month for the bats. This pumpkin came in that same set. And I loved the bats so much, I had to do the pumpkins. I thought they looked really cute. They were a very small addition, nothing over the top. But I love the way that they turned out once I added in the little curly cues at the bottom and the butterflies flying all over. That little butterfly stamp is from a notebook therapy stamp set that I got a while back. I'll leave that in the description box down below. I just added some little curly cue vines to the pumpkins. I don't know if this is actually what pumpkins look like as far as the vines and the leaves and all of that. I did not look anything up. I have no reference. I just thought it looked cute. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Cinderella with the little curly cues, so I just went with it. And of course, a spread is not complete without my sparkles all over the place. For the title, I had this little piece of paper that came in a paper pack from Amazon, and it said Chapter 11 on it, and it needed to be used for November. Absolutely needed it. Now we're moving on to my cleaning spread, and this is where I write in all of the cleaning tasks that I like to do, and I separate them by day. Last month, I completely messed up on my cleaning spread and did not do it, and it shows. So I really had to make sure that I added this back in this month because I need to get back on track. And especially with the holidays coming up, I need to make sure that I am sticking to my schedule. We have family coming for Thanksgiving, so I need to make sure that the house is as good as it's going to get this time of year. I cut out rectangles out of scrap craft paper from my craft journal and added some little circles that I punched out using a circle punch. And this is a very simple, very easy spread to do, but it's so much fun. Lastly, we are at my gratitude spread, and as you guys know, this is one of my favorite spreads to fill in every single day. I love it. It is a way to sort of jumpstart my creativity in the very beginning of the day. First thing in the morning, this is one of the first things that I do while I'm drinking my coffee. I just think about one thing that I am grateful for the previous day, something awesome that happened, something small that I'm thinking about. Sometimes I just write small things like a TV show that my husband and I are watching together, or just something small like that. All right, so that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye.